Hello friends, welcome back. I'm Beth, here to help you fulfill your potential in meditation. As most of you know, I don't have just one method that I teach to everybody, like one size fits all. Instead, I much prefer to teach people one-on-one, and the reason is that you're all different. So please use these videos as a guideline, and if there's anything that isn't quite working for you, anything that doesn't quite fit, then be in touch and I'll be more than happy to discuss those things with you one-on-one. Today's video is about working with the hindrance of sense craving when it arises in meditation. Now, this is a hindrance that visits most of us quite often. So today I'm going to give a few suggestions for how we can deal with sense craving when it arises, but I also suggest that you try and find your own solutions. If you notice sense craving arising, welcome in your wisdom at that time and see if you can find some skillful ways to deal with it. Now, sense craving in Pali we call kamachanda, and in brief it's the force of mind that is wanting to experience things through the body. So wanting to see the sights, hear the sounds, taste the taste, smell the smells, feel the sensations with the body. It might manifest as wanting to check our phone, wanting to speak to a friend, wanting to go and eat that piece of chocolate cake, or if you're me, maybe wanting to go and eat that pot of hummus it could be. And it can also manifest as the memory of pleasant sense experiences in the past. So, oh, how wonderful it was that beach holiday that I took with my friends. Oh, how much I enjoyed that movie, for example. And because we are all the time going off to these other sense pleasures and memories and feelings of what feels good, we don't have the time or the focus to stay with our meditation object. So as I describe sense craving, my guess is that most of you can remember having experienced this in your meditation from time to time. And so I'm going to offer a few solutions. So the first thing that I would suggest, if you notice sense craving arising in the practice, is to take a look at what you are doing the whole of the rest of the day. We can't expect to spend 90% of our waking life chasing after pleasurable experiences and then sit down to meditate and there's no sense craving in the mind. The mind is really strongly habit forming. So if we notice really a lot of sense craving coming into our meditation, then we need to look at how we're spending our life. Are we spending our life in this flow of always chasing after the next thing that feels good? If we are, then we need to look at bringing things like sense restraint into our daily life, right speech, wise friendship. I've made separate videos on these things and I'll put the links to those below this video so you can have a look at those if you want. But in brief, we want to be looking at how peaceful can we make the mind for most of the day, so that when we sit down to meditate, the mind is already in the habit of peacefulness. Now, if you've got a really immaculate daily life, no sense craving happening in your daily life, nice and peaceful, but you sit down to meditate and you still notice sense craving arise, then the next suggestion would be to actively cultivate contentment. Contentment is the force of mind that has everything it needs right here, right now. Just this moment is enough right here, right now. So it is the completely opposite force of the mind to craving. It's the perfect medicine for craving. And specifically, we can develop contentment in relation to our meditation object. So let's say, for example, that we're working with the breath. We can practice in the way that, oh, just this breath is good enough. Just this breath is all that I need. How wonderful to be sat here with this breath. And actively cultivating contentment with our meditation object is going to be a strong force to counterbalance any sense craving that's going to be there. Now, if cultivating contentment isn't quite enough, another tool we can use is to look at the impermanent nature of those sense pleasures. So how long does the pleasure from that chocolate cake, that pot of hummus, how long does it really last? How long does the pleasure from that movie really last? What is really the gratification in checking your phone or listening to another song, for example? The Buddha said that if we want big happiness, we need to give up small happiness. And sometimes when we reflect on the impermanent, fleeting nature of these sense pleasures, we can really get a taste of just how small the happiness is that we get from those. And we can feel inspired to try and cultivate something bigger and better for ourselves, which is the happiness of the meditation, the happiness of the Dharma. Now, if we tried also contemplating contentment and impermanence and the sense craving still remains, then we could try practicing 32 parts meditation or some other repulsiveness practice. This works especially well if we've got a lot of craving for the body. So it could be sexual craving, for example, lust, or it could be vanity, anything which is delighting in the beauty of our body or other people's bodies. Now, I've made a separate video on 32 parts meditation, so I'll link that one under here as well, so you can take a look at that if you want. I won't go into the details of the practice now, but just to say that it can be a very, very powerful antidote if we notice these forces of delighting in the beauty of bodies coming into our meditation practice in the form of sense craving. Now, if you've tried all of those and none of those work, then you could try investigating what the Buddha called the gratification and the danger in the case of sense pleasures. And according to the Buddha, if we've seen the gratification really clearly and we've seen the danger really clearly, the natural result will be that we disenchant to these sense pleasures. And so, let's say we find ourselves craving for chocolate cake, craving for hummus. We can have a look at all of the gratification points. What feels good about imagining that cake or imagining that hummus? What feels good about the actual eating of it? What feels good afterwards? And we bring our mindfulness to all of those gratification points. It's incredible actually how acknowledging those gratification points actually helps us to disenchant. Having looked at the gratification, we can then acknowledge the danger. Now you might think, really, what's the danger in some chocolate cake? What's the danger in another pot of hummus? What's the danger in checking my phone or watching a movie or listening to music? And the Buddha said that the danger is that life is short and the teachings are precious. So we don't want to waste time. And when we engage in sense pleasures, we're effectively wasting time on that small happiness when we could be using our time for the big happiness. We could be using our time for our liberation. So which one do we want? Do we want the small happiness for ourselves, or do we want the big happiness for ourselves? So those are some of the suggestions that I'm going to offer today for overcoming sense craving when it arises in your meditation. Again, I'd suggest that you also try and find your own solutions when sense craving arises. Sometimes when we find our own solutions, they have even more power. I would suggest that now is the time to get off of your computers. The screens help fuel the sense craving. They're part of the problem. So get onto the meditation cushions and start giving some of these things a go. Start seeing if you can recognize sense craving when it arises in the practice, and see if any of these little suggestions that I've made today help you to overcome it. If there's anything that isn't quite working for you, if you're confused about anything, then don't hesitate to contact me. I'll be more than happy to discuss those things with you individually. As most of you know, I do all of my work on a donation basis, so I encourage you to support me either through my website or through Patreon so that I can continue to make these videos for you all. Thank you so much for your support. Wishing you the best with your meditation.